here is you, because every Wednesday you manage to survive 3 hours of absolute torture. So you are the real hero here.
Yeah, and the Raju realized that the microphone was muted, so I'm gonna
Oh.
do a rerun. I think I'm gonna blame Anna. I think I'm supposed to be an IT professional here. Anyway,
It
so
was me.
guys, welcome to the new edition of Nikola Learns Chess, and Nikola also trying to learn streaming. Uh, with international master Anna Rudolf. Hey, KB Khan. Hello, Hedgehog 1963. It's good to see you guys. Hello, Libu 77. We're both doing great. And, I think my apologies for the camera issues last time. I'm pretty sure those problems are behind us. There was some silly settings in Windows that solved the problem. Anyway, so here we are. Here is the legend. I'm Anna Rudolf. Here is Nikola, a diligent pupil of sorts. So how are you doing, Anna, this week?
I'm doing very well, Nikola, and it's okay to be booming. That's why I have a boomer count on my channels. If you want, I can borrow it to you, and then. But no, kidding aside, you always do a great job, and the camera issue wasn't your fault at all. So I'm glad that you managed to find the cause of it, and from now on, we will not have only still images, but the actual reactions of you
Correct.
struggling through 3 hours of chess sessions every Wednesday.
Okay. And a couple of things. Anna actually is starting a new stream series for beginners.
Yes, it's not a regular stream like the shows with you, but I will
Oh,
have a
okay.
couple of sessions where I'm teaching complete beginners, because my community started to be interested in chess, also the ones who haven't played chess before. So now I feel like I need to make sure they are the best chess players in their families and among their friends.
Okay. Also, Anna has a great course on Chessable that I really liked, and it's always highly recommended. It's basically uh, one of my favorite courses on Chessable, and you can see it if you put command Chessable in the chat.
Thank you so much for that. That's very much of a compliment, I must say, because I know how many courses Nicola has studied, and
Yeah.
knowing that this is one of your favorites, that's a huge thing for me.
It's actually not one of the favorites; it's the favorite.
Oh,
So
thank you so much. That's even more flattering.
yeah. Also, I have a program announcement. Starting this Sunday, there will be a new series on this channel every Sunday at noon. It's a challenge. It will be a challenge. Hey, Lila, good to see you. Challenge is to adopt me. In other words, it's a series called Adopt Nikola, and it will be every Sunday at 12 p.m. noon. And inaugural adoption is a match against WGM Chiyu Ju, who incidentally is a former world champion. So I'm not rating my chances there are very high, but it will be also commentated by Iron Tari, and we have already quite a lot of streamers lined up. There will be a match against Dile Belankaya, whom I owe a match, and against Alessia Santeramo and Alexandra Botes, and so on and so forth. So I'm looking forward to being adopted.
I'm
So,
sure you will do a great job, and I can't wait to tune into those streams.
okay, thank you, Anna. All right, so welcome, guys. It's good to see you here, and I can hardly wait to see what Anna has prepared for us today. So, yeah, oh God, all right, I'm officially now worried. Thank you, Lila. I'm gonna need to. Let me put it this way: I'm not worried about Sunday. I'm worried about Wednesday afternoon. It's 5 p.m. here. Uh, Anna is hosting my channel,
Yes,
so
it's
Lila.
officially on Nicola's channel, the show. I'm hosting it on my channel. Good to see you, Dylan. Good to see you guys here. Everybody who is ready to sweat in this brain gym that we have at
Yes.
Nicola's channel every Wednesday.
Yes. And Sleepy Mario, yes, absolutely, you're allowed to give answers. I don't look at chat while I'm looking at the position. And this was meant to be a community exercise. In other words, this is supposed to help everybody improve. And very frankly, I know that if I know that other people share my suffering in this class, I'm feeling better about it. Hey, thank you, teacher. It's good to see you. We're doing well. I am waiting to see what Anna has for us.
Well, for today, we're gonna have yet another lengthy session of torture. I mean, training, chess training. For today, I changed a little bit my strategy in terms of how I choose the game because earlier I was relying on your opening repertoire
Okay.
and games that I can find from lines that you play. For today, I decided I would focus on a player. She competed in one of the matches that Openfield Media has recently sponsored. So I decided that today our focus is the former women's world champion Alexandra Kostenyuk.
Wow. Okay.
We're gonna try to channel your inner Alexandra
Okay.
Kostenyuk moves because you will be trying to figure out her moves with the white pieces in this game against Bela Khatanashvili, another very strong female player.
Okay. Wonderful. That's great. Hey, Mornington, it's good to see you. Okay, Karokan. And just for my benefit, who is white and who is black?
Alexandra with the white
Okay.
pieces, and Bela Khatanashvili, actually a country lady of Lille, also from Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Khatanashvili is also one of the strongest female players, over 2,500 her rating. Both of them
Wow.
are men's grandmasters, both Alexandra and Bela. They played this in a Blitz event in Beijing, but I think most of the game is really high quality,
All right.
regardless
And
of the Blitz.
Bella, and according to Lila in chat, Bella is an amazing player. Okay.
Yeah, in this game, though, unfortunately for Bella, she was mainly on the suffering side, but the game will have ups and downs. So there
Okay.
will be critical moments and turn of events.
All right.
I don't know how familiar you are with this particular line, but I'm actually happy if you're out of board.
I don't play this, so I am now.
Very good,
I'm
very
right
good.
now on general principles.
Yes, that's what I was hoping for. Because the other day too, I thought that even though it was aligned, the first five moves were something that you also play. I think first five moves, but then we quickly reached a position that was not in your theory preparation, and I think I prefer because I want you to have to start thinking from quite an early stage
Okay.
of the game.
Thank you, Anna.
Oh, sorry. I think after Castle
Tinker
97.
teacher, that the idea of the hat is, and thank you, Chess Noob, for the compliments to the hat. I am, you know, I'm gonna have a stream that's gonna have a very significant hat content. So it's probably not, I need to focus a little bit on the torture. So anyway, this sounds like all normal theoretical moves. I'm not sure about G5 though.
Yeah, this H6 G5 is a really aggressive approach,
Okay.
and that's why I like this game because Bela is also known for her really creative and aggressive style too. So she's not scared of going against Alexandra in this manner that you're basically weakening your king side so that you can attack White's king with H6 G5. Now I'm not gonna ask you immediately how would you react. Actually, no, I will ask you because I was like, oh no, this is still theory. I'm not gonna ask. What's your feeling about this position, Nikola?
Yeah, I have just one as a side note. Alexandra Kostyuk is a dear friend of mine, and we have organized, myself and Open Field Media more than one match for her. She played against Grandmaster Ben Feinhold in the very first Open Field Media match, and she's now playing a series of matches against the Grandmaster Anna Muzichuk. I played exactly one game against Alexandra, and I actually had a fairly promising position. It was Adam's attack, and she actually said that, but unfortunately it was 3+0, so yours truly managed to flag, first ruin the position and then flag. But,
Hmm.
Alexandra is a great lady and a very strong chess player. So,
Mhm.
anyway. So you're asking me here what's my evaluation from the position from a standpoint of white.
Yes, I'm curious about your intuition. How would you react to an aggressive approach like h6, g5 here with the white pieces? What would be your thinking?
Okay. Hey, 2511, thank
Mhm.
you. And hey, Coffee Attack, it's good to see you. Oh, and thank you, Lila, for the sub. That's very greatly appreciated. Thank you. Um, the question here is okay, this G5 appears like a bank approach, if you want. In other words, I'm all in.
Mm-hmm.
The normal way to correspond to this is to do a counter attack in the center or on the other wing. Other wing is not interesting, but that king is stuck in the middle, surrounded by knights and the queen. Um, so if you're asking me for what I would play here, I'm not terribly worried about that g4 move, to be quite frank
Mm-hmm.
with you. There are plenty of options. Uh, but you know, something along the lines of c4 was kind of topical, which may or may not be the right move in this position.
Mm-hmm.
Um, thank you, Luigi. That's very, very, very greatly appreciated, my friend. Um, okay, so yeah, that's one option. Another option is to actually, I don't see that many options. I mean, the only developed piece here is that bishop on f5, so bishop d3 is also topical.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you can also counter aggression with counter aggression, and you can't play knight a5 or knight c5. White can also play knight d2 with an idea of playing f4,
Mm-hmm.
which may or may not be prepared. Prepared by first. Obviously, you need to move the knight, and maybe you can exchange the bishop first on f5. All right, so that's the analysis.
Mm-hmm.
The move I would play here is, I like the f4 plan.
Mm-hmm. So how would you play for f4?
Well, knight d2 blocks the bishop. So we can borrow a line from King's Indian and, play this, knight
Mm-hmm.
d1. On the other hand,
On the other hand?
no, I'm trying to see whether a ride on the wild side is what's called for here. Meaning knight
Which
g,
move are you thinking?
which would be knight g5.
Ooh. I saw that mentioned in the chat as well. You guys
Ah,
are
cool.
going for it.
That might be
would you
that might
consider
be
knight takes g5?
that might be a bridge too far. It helps black develop a bishop on h6, and
Yes.
by the time we're done sacrificing to get to f7, we may not have enough power for it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, knowing a little bit about Alexandra's style, I would guess that she played knight e1.
Knight e1 is the main move. So this is still a
Okay.
theoretical position. Knight e1 is the most popular, played by uh, grandmasters such as Hikaru Nakamura, Vishy Anand, and Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, to name
Oh,
a
the
few.
Patzers, yes.
That is the main move, and she will play it a move later. So here, Alexandra went for bishop d2.
d3, yeah, okay. Which?
bishop
Oh,
to
D2.
d2, and
Okay.
then knight e1. So she's going for the same idea that you mentioned. So knight e1 immediately or knight e1 a move later. This is the best approach, I think. I
Okay.
played this position once years ago without knowing much about the h6 g5 line, and it was very unpleasant without knowing how to properly react to it. I think I somehow figured out that I should go for knight e1 f4, but I think without that, this position actually is tricky because how even if black doesn't play g4, as you guys mentioned in the chat, g4 isn't really a threat because we have knight h4. So
Yeah.
it's not about black wanting to push right now, but black will develop the bishop to g7 and has gained space on the king side. While for white, it's not that obvious. What will we do? c4 seems to be uh, a straightforward line, but even if we push c4, black doesn't have to react. Or we have to start thinking also what happens if he or she takes. But even if black doesn't take, it's not quite sure how to continue.
Yeah, and this knight on e7 will happily go on d5, and it's actually
Yeah,
a great.
that's another thing.
We're creating an outpost. Now, knight d1
Yeah,
an idea that one can borrow from King's Indian, in which
yeah.
pushing the knight to what appears to be a ridiculous spot actually turns out
Mm.
to be the very strong move.
Yeah,
And
very true.
yeah, and okay,
So it happened in the game a move later in this position, the same idea. Well, I guess that now that the black knight is already on g6, maybe Alexandra wouldn't want to go f4 immediately, but you can also play knight d3 first and prepare f4. But in general, white is aiming to do that, as well as, let's see what has changed in the position with this pair of moves that we have included. Let's
uh,
see, Nikola, what do you see here?
okay. What I'm seeing is, well, we can't, if we push, we can actually push the pawn, but that may not be the, well, hey, Kino FDC, thank you for the follow, my friend. That's very greatly appreciated. Well, is she gonna grab the bishop by playing g4?
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that. Hey, Frank, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Hello, my friend. Um, she probably did. I mean, why not?
So 91 has just been played, and you're saying that Alexander's main threat here, apart from like preparing for f4, but there's a bigger threat, which is
G4,
g4. The bishop can only go to e4, and then
and after f3,
trapped.
it's trapped.
Very good. Very good. That's the immediate threat here. So black reacted with knight to f4. I mean, I'm pretty sure that those who play knight g6 are going to go knight f4 to have some space for the bishop, and as well as offering this possible trade on f4. Would you consider taking on f4, or you would just try to not care that much about this f4 knight? How do you feel about the piece like this, knight on f4?
Good question. If I take, then I have the black has an open G file.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on the other hand, I'm exchanging what is a pretty bad bishop. You know that
Yeah.
that black square bishop is pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I probably don't want to lose a white field bishop, light squared bishop,
Mm-hmm. Good point.
because that's a very important piece in Caro-Kann.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of it, that gives black control over the white complex. So
Yes.
we can either take or we can move the bishop to f3,
Mm-hmm.
or because that's the only move, right?
So you're considering either bishop takes f4 or moving the light squared bishop away from uh, preventing the capture basically on e2. You don't
Yes,
want to give up that bishop. Yes.
correct. How worried am I about that opened G file? Actually, I should be, because that's a pretty quick attack. You know, that pawn on f4 is actually dangerous. Queen h4 is at threat, bishop g8 is there, and all right. I can also attempt to exchange the bishops and play bishop g4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Bishop g4 can be followed by h5.
Mm-hmm.
And then we end up having three dangerous pawns. Or if we exchange on f5, then we end up with f5, g5, and h5 pawns, which is a pretty scary looking phalanx, actually. This is actually a tough choice to make, to be very
It
frank,
is.
Anna.
It is.
I'm pretty sure she doesn't want to play g3 because she doesn't want to. I'm quite feel rather strongly that we should not let black have that light squared bishop for that knight.
Mm-hmm.
So the question here is do we take, or do we exchange the bishop, or do we play bishop f3? If you play bishop f3, then there is a I think I'm probably in this position playing bishop f3.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not very confident in that move, but that looks that it's the least committal of moves.
Sure. So if you're choosing bishop f3, I'm gonna ask you another difficult question. What about me trying to expand further? Even if right now I'm not threatening g4, but I could picture something like bishop to h6 and say, hey, I'm gonna chase that bishop until I can take it.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, we can bite the bullet, take on f4, and then take on h5.
Hmm. Would you go for that?
Depends on how lucky I feel, to paraphrase Clint Eastwood.
Let's calculate that line because it's really concrete. So you're saying bishop takes f4, g takes f4, bishop takes h5.
I mean,
Can
queen
white get
h4
away with that?
queen h4 and I'm dead. Okay, yes.
Very good. Let's show it on the board because actually it's not that simple to see. But you are right.
Yeah,
After capturing this pawn, unfortunately, we are
yeah,
about to lose our bishop because it's mate
yes,
on h2 if we move it. Very good job.
yeah. That's not a good idea. So now we need to decide how we can handling the potential g4. We can play h3 and allow that check. And then,
g3 and knight h3, you're saying, right?
yeah.
Hmm?
And then what? We can play king g2, or we can actually play king h1 with an idea that if black pushes on g2 on g4, we have bishop g2. But then we have again given away that bishop for a knight, and that bishop on g2 is not in a very good shape. Okay. Frankly, the more I look at this, the more this looks like a dead end, to be frank, Anna. Sorry to drag you into it. And yes, I can see the smile. All right, so bishop f3 doesn't work.
Not necessarily not works, but I think the issue is at some point you will do one or the other of those moves that you were trying to prevent. So bishop f3, you didn't have to take on f4 and you didn't have to push any pawns, but now after a few more moves, it seems that we will have to take the decision regardless. So the question is, if we will have to go for it, does it make sense to do it earlier or not?
Yeah.
Is it okay to wait, or shall we?
We're discussing here taking the knight or push or yeah.
So bishop f3 is possible. It's not a bad move at all. The question will be if you will want to take on
Yeah.
f4 afterwards, or will you want to take on f4 here, or the other bishop move is bishop g4. But you were saying h5 there, so let's take a look at this too. Is this dangerous for white, h5 here?
Okay. Right. So if this is played, then we almost have to take the bishop.
Yeah, because bishop f3 would be the
Bishop.
same position but loss of a tempo.
Yes. And this looks a little bit scary, but maybe we have some counterplay. The one thing that I always like in Caro-Kann, that there is always a motif of actually playing e6.
Mm-hmm.
And we can take on f4 here and triple the pawns.
Uh-huh.
Which is actually not a bad idea. And then with an idea of playing knight d3 and then knight c5 or knight e5, and then after, and we can push on e6. Potentially, I'm thinking aloud about it, and then we can also play knight d3, and so on. So that appears to be the best move in here. The alternatives are to, hey Daniel, good to see you. Frankly, Anna, I think we need to. I think we need to break up these pawns,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't see a better candidate move than bishop takes on f4 here. To be quite
Very
frank with
good
you,
job. Yeah.
yeah.
Because you were saying that these pawns are looking threatening and dangerous, but once you take on f4, now the pawn structure is an entirely different story.
Yes, that's pretty sad.
Yeah. Considering too that I mean the fact that black is also undeveloped, but I think this pawn structure would be bad regardless, even if black had already castled queenside, for instance. But now just the fact that black is undeveloped and is strategically wavers because of this really vulnerable pawn structure is just bad in every possible sense.
Hey Frappuccino, it's good to see you, my friend. All right, so okay, I would assume that this is not what was played.
No, but I'm gonna test you. After bishop g4, I'm gonna play bishop to g6 and say that, hey, now I want to play h5 and go for the same ideas as we earlier mentioned. How would
Okay.
you react?
Uh, okay. Well, here I have other options.
Okay.
I can play g3, not that it's a, but that's kind of an immediate move because where is that knight going? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so black almost has to play h5 because otherwise I'm gaining a knight.
Mm-hmm. So g3,
Yeah,
and you're
h5.
saying that black has to go h5.
Unless I'm missing something obvious, that knight doesn't have a single field to jump on.
Yep, there's nowhere to go. Very well observed, and also that this is the only move that black has. So let's see how this position is.
I can play. I can actually play bishop f3 here,
Mm-hmm.
and then on g4 I can take on f4, and then after take on f3, take with a knight on f3, and I have an extra pawn.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So after bishop f3, what do you think black shall do?
Okay. Um, well, black can play knight h3 with a check and then push on g4, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I need to figure out how to answer that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a choice between. I probably want to go to h1 here
Mm-hmm. Why so?
because I need to keep the g2 for the bishop.
Very good. Very good
Yeah,
intuition.
yeah.
There's quite a big difference actually between these two moves for what you mentioned, even if it's not a concrete line immediately. But yes, this is way better than King G2.
Yeah. Well, the
I mean, in concrete, if black pushes G4 immediately, then you can decide to play Bishop G2 directly. Yes, in that sense, it's immediate. I'm just correcting myself because I realized, well, black can force uh, the issues here, and if we had played King G2, then for sure black would have wanted to play G4 and say
yes,
that bishop will not end up on G2 ever.
yes. No, that doesn't look good. To answer, Talent Short is asking, would an open file be scary for white? Uh, True. It's just that there are some more concrete consideration in this position. I'm thinking, uh, like if black plays h4 here, trying to open the g file, we can leave that and kind of then play bishop g2 and see what happens. And it's not immediately obvious how black can attack here.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Two.
So how would you evaluate this position for white, for instance? Do you like this position? Well, it's a difficult one, so I don't expect an immediate answer.
I prefer white in this position.
Uh-huh.
It
Why?
has an advantage in development.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this knight is dominated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it can go here. But even if it goes something like this, it's very far. This rook is at the start. It's. Oh, sorry, my bad, Anna. My apologies. Uh, yeah, I think white has the advantage in development, an advantage of space. And hey, Lavi, it's good to see you, my friend. Thank you for joining us. I know it's fairly late for you. Thank you for coming. Oh, and we have a new command, strong Lali. Yes,
Oh.
that's cool. Lali is famous for unilaterally winning more than one NA versus EU matches in Chessbrad channel. So
Congratulations.
yeah, including some very scarily strong players. Here's another thing. After we put the bishop on g2, then what we were talking about, pushing f4 and then hitting up, trying to get this rook activated, hitting this field. Yes, black can castle long, but I prefer white position here.
Sure, let's make a few more moves.
Okay,
I'm gonna try to test you here.
of
Will
course.
As you said, I'm undeveloped, so I'm gonna make a developing move for black.
Okay. Okay. All right. So what do I have here? I All right. I can play this,
Mm-hmm.
which is a natural move, and you're almost forced to play this, right?
Uh-huh. So black has to go g4 or bishop f5. Both defend the knight, but then those are absolutely the only two options here, it seems.
If
Well, or bishop e4, but I don't know if that makes that much sense.
Yeah,
So let's
I
see.
mean, if you play g4, then I can take, and then your pawns are actually protecting my king.
Hmm. That's a good point. Yes,
Uh,
very true. Normally, we don't want to give up a light squared bishop like this when we have a fianchetto structure, but here you are right that this pawn is actually protecting your king as long as there will be nothing appearing here and we don't step into things we shouldn't step into. But with with some care, I agree with you that this could actually be used for our defense. It's an unclear position, I think, and I'm not sure which one I would prefer. I don't know which side I would prefer actually, but it's interesting. It's interesting, this line.
Yeah, and as Sleepy Mario just noticed in chat, the white square is a little bit weak for white, but the position here, let's just take these 2 pawns off the board, and black is better significantly.
Yeah, yeah. Black would definitely prefer an open h5, and it's not as terrible as it seems because white still has an f pawn that we can use as
Yeah,
protection. So if we had our pawn on f3, I think that would already optically make the position appear better. Not better uh, for anybody. I think this is an unclear position, but the light squares will be somewhat more sheltered, somewhat more guarded.
yeah.
This is I think unclear. I want to look at bishop f5 too a little bit, and how would you continue here, and how do you like the position for white in general?
Now this is a more natural move because it keeps black's options open.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a little tricky. Um, the thing is, one almost has an inclination here to punish black for an hyper extended position,
Hmm.
but it's not immediately obvious how to do it. Um, White can play something along the lines of f4 if he's so inclined, and then take with if black takes, he can take with a bishop as opposed to pawn.
Mm-hmm.
And then with rook if it's taken one more time. And then that's actually a very comfortable position for white.
Mm-hmm.
It's, that is, a pawn strike. That's one possibility. And, the other one's c4 is too slow. And I don't see a piece move that would make a difference here.
Mm-hmm. So you're considering f4.
Yes.
What do you see there as the best response for black? Now let's think of this position from black's perspective. Taking, pushing, not caring. What's your call intuition wise, and then let's think further.
Well, taking is basically pushing is locking the position down,
Mm-hmm.
and that knight would never leave h3.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one possibility. On the other hand, that cramps white's position a little bit, which limits some of the white's options.
Mm-hmm.
Taking it opens the position which I actually prefer for white here.
If black takes on f4.
If I takes an f4, because
Sure.
I can take with a bishop, and then there's all these motives in which after bishop on f5, where it were to disappear, I can play against f7,
Mm-hmm.
and granted, black needs only a couple of moves to castle long and survive. So I'm not. I still like f4, although as you said, it's still a little bit unclear.
So f4, and you consider for black the main move.
The main move is probably, if it takes, then we take on f4, And I don't think g takes makes sense, so let's take with a bishop. Because white would find it very hard to contest the g file with a knight, protecting g1 here.
I see.
So the g4 basically blockades the position, and then black can play something along the lines of h4 afterwards. So I would play g4 for black here.
Very good intuition and reasoning also. G takes f4 is really unclear, but as you said, g4 gains more space now on the king side for black and is ready to prepare or push h4 next move. I'm not sure it needs more preparation now that the g3 pawn is fixed. So h4 could be next move, or black will decide to finish development first on the queen
Well,
side and then h4.
one way to stop h4 or mitigate the effects is to take on h3.
Yeah.
And then that pawn on h3, for intents and purposes, is, so Talishot is asking, isn't g4 and h4 scary here? And yeah, it is scary, but, if, black plays, then very honestly, I would just take it.
So how does this position compare to the other position where we were looking at bishop h3? Do you remember in the other line how it looked like? I can show it on the board again for the viewers too. We were looking at a similar idea here, taking on h3. Let's compare this position to this one. Which one do you prefer for white?
Yeah, I think I see the point.
What's the point?
The point is that f4 is too committal.
f4 has been played already. It's such a small yet quite major difference in the evaluation. A small move, tiny pawn push, but it can do a lot of harm since pawns cannot go backwards. As simple as it is, but we wish that pawn was on f3, right? We
Yeah.
want to have a better control of the light squares, so we can never do that again. It will not go back.
Yes, and we got the question of the names of the players. The white player is Grandmaster Alexander Kostyanyuk, and the black player is,
Bella Khotenashvili from
Bella
Georgia, both of
Khotenashvili,
them
yes.
top female players.
Yes.
Bella as well is has the highest title, Grandmaster, and the rating over 2,500.
Yeah, and here is the thing, we discussed playing f3. When we play f4, we can't play f3 anymore. So we have this nasty looking diagonal. All right, so... Okay, all right, so f4 is not the right move, I understand.
But we're just here to understand these positions better because they aren't easy at all. But yes, f4 may not be good.
Yeah, no, this is excellent. This is a very complicated position. So yeah, so f4 doesn't work here because it gets us into a position that's we need to find some other plan. And what is the other plan? And incidentally, this is, and as I mentioned on many a Monday, Nikola's best losses. Finding the right plan in a positions like this has always been very hard for me.
Good. Then I'm happy with today's game.
All right, so what do we do here? All right.
It's not an easy position. I'm telling everyone too that it's normal not to know.
Okay. Okay. So well, we can be very positional about this and play knight a5. All right, and ask a question. How do you defend these two pawns?
Yeah.
The problem with that move is that, black can play queen b6, and then we have a question how we are defending this and this.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we can try to provoke b6 and then push c4 and play against c6. But that all appears to be a little bit away from the action.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what do we do here? We have this knight on e1 that's not doing much. Knight is preparing f4 that now we don't want to play. Okay, so we don't want to play take on h3 because that leaves us with a huge hole.
Mm-hmm.
But black doesn't have any concrete threats. Yeah.
That's true. That is true.
All right.
What would be the move that you would go for in a blitz game?
In all honesty, this is the type of position that I get myself into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Me too. These are not easy for me neither to
no,
understand, so don't worry.
No, I'm not worried. This is why we're doing this. I mean, well, if it's a bullet game, I'm probably gonna bite the bullet proverbially and push f4 and hope I can outswindle the opponent. So that's the bullet move.
I see. More concrete approach.
Yes, on a not a bullet move, I can play knight f3 and plan to play knight g1, so I get rid of the knight while I keep the bishop.
Yeah, I see that mentioned by Sleepy Mario as well.
Oh,
It's
okay.
interesting. It's interesting how you both came to that conclusion.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how good it is because it does take time and it's really unique.
It's a dynamic position.
Yeah. Yes, I'm not sure we have the time. At the same time, well, Black isn't done yet with their development, so maybe
No.
we do have some time here.
And
Question is, even if we achieve that, for instance, I don't know, if Black goes g4, h4, those kind of moves, even if we get here, will we be happy about this or not? That's the main question, I think.
fair enough. Yeah, that's also too slow. Hey, #go, it's good to see you. Thank you for the follow. That's very greatly appreciated. All right, so basically we have a concrete problem here is that we need to find a strategic plan in this position.
Yes, because Black's position, if we give Black a couple of moves, Black will finish development, and then Black's position is actually more pleasant, with quite a clear idea here against our king on the king side.
Sure. No, Black doesn't have a planning problem. They're going to all into attack.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And if we take on h3, then we have a rook that's being attacked.
Yes, so it's not the same as in the positions with the pawn on g4.
No.
It's really not a simple position, so
No.
I'm saying both to Nikola and to the viewers that if you don't know what's the right way to go here for white, that's a totally normal feeling.
Sure.
It's very complicated, this position.
Okay, the problem here is every plan I like in this position is it takes slow. For example, if I want to activate this knight, going to f3 really doesn't work because where is it going afterwards? And then if I want to do another approach, I have to play this and then this and then this, which is 3 moves.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you give me 3 moves. Let's see what I can do in 3 moves for black. We'll try to finish our development.
All right.
I guess.
So, okay.
Queen to c7 or queen to b6 are the 2 squares I'm looking at for the queen. Let's try this one.
Okay. That's a normal Caro-Kann move. And then I can follow with a plan. You don't have any concrete threats, though you may want to, we need to consider that black may want to push c5. But that's not an immediate threat.
Correct.
Do I actually have, yeah, I actually have time to play this.
Okay, so if I castle, that would be the most natural that black wants to finish development.
Okay. Then I can follow the plan and play something like this.
And now knight takes the 5 is in the air. I need to consider it as if I'm playing with the black pieces, if I move the bishop away or allow you to capture.
So Lal is saying I want to exchange d2 bishop for e7 because black pawns are light squares. Okay.
Yeah.
You mean as black, as white? Yeah.
So Nikola is threatening to take my bishop, which is protecting my knight. So I either need to defend the knight with g4 or play bishop e4, but bishop e4 I don't think will help me after f3. So I guess after all I will need to push g4.
Okay. And then I want to declare that this knight is actually stronger than your bishop.
Okay.
And I'm going to play c4.
c4?
Yeah.
I wonder if I can trick you somehow. If I open up the d file, will it somehow benefit me, or am I just opening up the position for your attack?
Good question. And then there is this particular threat.
Yeah, I can't do anything about it immediately, but I'm hoping that there will be something.
I'm going to follow up with this, and I'm not saying this is the line I would take, but that's definitely leads up to the opening of the position. Okay, and now we can follow Lali's advice. What can we do here?
So we are just analyzing this position with a couple of exemplary lines to see if this is the way to go for white. Those of you are just joining and wondering why are we making moves, we are looking at a very complicated position.
Yeah. Okay. Can I do this? Just thinking loud. And I'm just gonna do this and you forgive me. Well, you can take on c4. But something along the lines, I take on h3, put the bishop here, and then threaten to jump on d6 with a fork.
Tricky. So you're seeing tactical motives that may work out for white.
I'm not saying
Let's calculate it blindfold. Let's calculate it blindfold. I'm curious. So bishop takes h3, g takes h3, bishop to g5. Your turn with black. Can you refute that line, or is white winning there?
Well, you can take on c4 when I take on h3
it will be a trade,
which may actually be, a refutation right there. But you want me to refute take on h3, bishop g5.
If there is a refutation, I don't know.
Yeah, there is this a little well, the bishop on e7 is undefended.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Correct.
right, but you can take on e5.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can actually now take on, I mean, the knight on c4 is still hanging.
Yes.
So you can just take on c4 and that's a refutation right there. Though I'm not sure it's necessarily a bad position for white, but yeah, that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Is
All
there
right.
anything else for black in that position apart from the trade? Something even better.
I don't see it, I have to admit. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have taken on h3 and taken on h3, and now a bishop g5.
Yes, they were doing this blindfold exercise, and you guys can join if you want to.
Yeah,
So, in that moment, after bishop takes h3, g takes h3, bishop g5, what's the best move for black is the question.
okay. There is this nice intermezzo, which is basically queen d5,
Very good job.
and then
Really good
then
job.
I'm dead. Okay, yeah, fair
Yeah, let's
enough.
show it on the board because it's not easy to visualize these lines. There are a
Sure.
couple of moves, and also in the starting position, there's a bishop on g2, so it's very easy to forget
Yeah,
that in the resulting position, we can, with black, give a check here. So the whole idea
yeah,
of Nicola's move is that we are trying to deflect this knight from e7. Once the bishop moves, knight d6 wins the queen. That's a beautiful motif, and well done, hashtag, for pointing that out as well. That this is what we are playing for, so that's very good. Problem is this intermediate move, as
yeah. And the
Nicola has
problem is
pointed
that
out.
that move is very nasty
Yeah.
because we need to play f3, and
Yes, I mean it's it's
yeah,
going to be made if we don't play
yeah,
f3, and now
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
piece down.
Yeah, it's hard to visualize that queen d5. It's like you're fighting the ghost on bishop on g2.
Yeah, it's so difficult. I think these are the easiest to miss in one's calculation.
Yeah,
And if you already played bishop g5, I mean, I guess maybe if it's not a blitz or bullet game, and then you reconsider whether you can play bishop g5, because after taking on h3, you have one more chance to decide whether you want to go for this idea or not.
yeah,
And maybe now after the trade, it's easier to not forget about it. But still, if you have taken on h3, that was for this very reason. So
yeah. No, and it's a playable position for white. I can play knight to e3, and I'm defending that check. And I'm, hey, proto-humanist, thank you for the raid. That's very greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Um, okay. All right. So yeah,
what's
but
the conclusion then? What have we been analyzing? Do you remember where this comes from? Now I'll help you a
I,
little bit, because actually until here, I think you, all the lines that you were mentioning, this whole idea about the knight maneuver, we started out just looking at this really unclear position. So this is super unclear, very complicated position. And you said c3, knight c2 instead of f4. F4 seems to be a bad
yeah,
move, but then you came up with a better alternative. You said the knight on e1 is misplaced. Let's improve its situation by going for a
yeah.
knight maneuver. And I
I,
think this makes a lot of sense. So
I actually
kudos for
agree.
that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. This is, we don't need to go into tactics here.
Yeah.
It's this is, we can play. Well, I think c4 is still perfectly acceptable move. We
It's
can
a
also
possibility, yes.
play rook c1. And here is
Hmm.
another thing. After we play c4, we have assumed that black has to take, right? But if black takes, we have this lovely gem, right?
True.
You know,
Yeah,
uh,
how did we didn't look at that. You're right.
so we have this
Um
gem,
Yeah, it's really a
which
mess.
might be giving to, well, no, not necessarily, because we are attacking this bishop, so we might be winning an exchange.
Let's take a look at that because I
Okay,
missed that myself. I didn't see
okay.
that this is an option
So
here.
this. Right.
Hashtag don't tell Nikola. He may get too confident. No, but it's true. It's true.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, hashtag. That's very greatly appreciated. You know, I'm afraid that after I get adopted by Chio on Sunday, I'm gonna have to live that down. Anyway, thank you. Oh, and for the record, guys, for those of you who haven't been here from the beginning, there is a new series of called Adopt Nikola. It's going to be Sundays at noon. The first adoption match is against WGM Jew, and she's a former world champion, so I don't rate my chances very high, but I'm looking forward to playing the match. So, all right.
I'll definitely be watching if I'm around.
Oh, thank you, Anna. This is one of those scary moments. Is do you really want your coach to be watching your games?
Sorry, I must say I will not be watching for sure. I will not be watching, but I'll
Thank
be
you.
watching without telling you that I'm watching.
All right. All right. So I think this is winning for white, right?
And let's see. So the queen has to go. Let's play a move. Queen b5.
Okay, and then we take this.
Okay.
And
So if the white knight is taken on b3, then
we'll
bishop
take,
takes e7.
yes, and
So
we're
that
up.
cannot be. Then system of elimination. I gotta get rid of the bishop.
Okay. And then we need to move this knight somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the only move, right?
Mm-hmm.
Still, I'm up in exchange for a pawn, but granted, this is a very complex position. But I have this. This queen is a little bit shaky. I have potentially an open c file at some point, and yeah, black can play something like, this. And I'm sorry,
Yeah, bishop d3 seems to be a good idea, so that you prevent the constant knight takes f5 possibilities, and the bishop looks pretty strong on d3. So I definitely approve of that move.
But maybe instead of moving the knight to d2, I can take on f5 first.
Yeah, that could be an improvement to prevent this. Yes. So in which moment would you include that move? Before? Well, actually, you had many opportunities to take, so I wonder which one you choose.
I can take it here. And then I can take it here.
Yeah, true. Yes.
And then
Take and then move away.
And I can decide what I want to do with this knight.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't know how much of an advantage this is, because it does look like black is pretty active, but it's an exchange. I do like to have my material up.
If you are the big, you like free stuff.
I do like free stuff. I was just gonna include this line. I'm trying to see if I can do anything concrete, because you will play knight d2. I'm guessing there aren't really many squares for the knight. So I guess the question is there anything concrete here for black because of the d file? Can black take on b2 something concrete, or is it just that white is an exchange up for a piece and a pawn, minor piece and a pawn?
Well, there is always this knight d5 that's a threat. If you're asking me to evaluate this position, which you are, the answer is it's not easy to evaluate, to be quite frank with you.
Yeah.
This knight is,
I agree with you fully.
Yeah, this knight is mightily annoying because it basically ties up a piece to defend this pawn.
Yeah, it does.
Um, you know, getting this pawn may or may not be easy or feasible.
Hmm.
Um, on the other hand, huh, on the other hand, black doesn't have anything concrete
Hmm.
attack wise. Honestly, this is one of those positions that one would have to spend like 15 minutes thinking to decide who played
Yeah.
to one wants.
Hmm.
Uh, there are too many weaknesses here in the white side. Like even taking this is not. I mean, it's not a good move. I'm not saying that would open a B file for white, but
It becomes very concrete as well. So, like, of course, as you're saying, um, in principle, it shouldn't be a good move. But if black can somehow use the d file at the same time, because after queen b2, you're also trying to collect this one and just gang up on the d files. Um, it is really unclear the position. I fully agree with your assessment that this is a mess. Three possible results, most likely, even though white is an exchange up, but it's just a very difficult position.
yeah. But give me a move. And is it white's move? No, it's black's move.
Black's move
Okay.
on top of that, because if it was white to move, I guess that one move would be enough to,
Yeah, I can
let's say,
play.
step out of the d file,
I can do
like
this, and
this,
then I
attack
can push
this.
here.
Yeah, that as well. Indeed. Yeah, queen to c2 or queen to e2. So white is just one move away from getting a better position, but it's black to move, and I guess that's what makes it so complex.
Yeah. I presume this wasn't played in the game.
How do you know? Of course it wasn't. But it's one of the most interesting lines, so I had to point out
No,
that
no,
this
no,
was
no.
an
Of course.
option.
No. Okay. And
This
I'm
was an
supposed to be
option.
Mr. Messy here, and I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, yeah. So if I'm black, what do I play here? I really can't take on. I can't take on e5, right? Can I?
Depends, is there a follow-up? So knight takes e5, d takes.
And then queen b4, bishop b4, and that knight is dead.
Yeah, you win back the piece.
And white is busted. Okay, so
Hmm.
yeah. All right, yeah. Knight e5 is, I guess, the move.
Yeah, I think that should be working, yes. So we can also show it on the board if you want. Knight takes e5, d takes. There are now a couple of options for black to win the piece, like bishop to b4, queen to b4, or queen takes b2. Does that work too? We need to take a look at those three.
No, that's
Queen b2, knight
in
c4. Is there anything there?
in all honesty, even bishop g5 is dangerous.
Oh, you're right. There's a fourth option.
Well, that pawn on b2 actually more protects black more than
Hmm.
you know.
True.
Um, Queen b4 is pretty straightforward.
True.
In either way, I think the minute some heavy artillery shows up on the d2 with this pawn hanging, this knight being here, white is in very deep trouble.
Yeah, it's not looking good. Of course, this was a very lengthy analysis, and we are just assuming what happens if this is
Yeah,
played, what happens if black responds with that move. So this is just to show how complex these positions are and how difficult it is to actually find the right plan. I do think that your knight maneuver is good because the knight on e1 was really passive and you have improved it. Maybe c4
c4 doesn't work.
um, doesn't work here, but in other positions it may be the strongest move because c4 is actually a thematic move. I was thinking too that in other lines you were taking on f5, and what if you had taken earlier? Because now after g4, so knight to e3 forces me to defend my knight with g4,
Correct.
and if you then take f on f5, now this is a position we haven't observed yet, and let's try to assess how does this look.
Okay. Um, all right.
And whenever I say things like that, guys, everyone watching, I also mean that you should be thinking, not just Nicola. I know it's
Yes.
easier to sit back and relax, but I'd like you to work. I'd like you to work to figure this out.
Okay, so there is this team that kind of was there from the get-go, all right, from
Mm-hmm.
some time, which was to take on h3 and then play queen f3, and then how do you
Mm-hmm.
defend this pawn?
Yeah.
And then queen on f5, there is this, and there is this, and that's actually a very strong piece.
Uh-huh.
So that looks like a rather obvious plan for white here. These two pawns are actually still, the pawn here and here are pretty good defenders. And now that, the light squared bishop for black is gone, we are not really that much worried about this whole complex, because
Yeah.
how's queen gonna come to g2 and
Mm-hmm.
give us a checkmate? It's you know it's really not possible.
Yeah, very well summarized what is the main difference here with other positions we looked at where we were taking bishop takes h3 as an option. So you can either take and play queen f3, or if you want to preserve the bishop, depends, because I do think this makes perfect sense to take here queen f3. We are about to win a pawn, and black is lacking the light square bishop that could cause any harm to the white king. So either this or attacking this pawn immediately with a move like queen to c2. I think both seem to make quite a lot of sense
Yep.
after the knight maneuver you have found c3,
Yeah.
knight c2, knight e3. So it adds up to a better position for white. Of course, these are only just examples. Black is not forced to play like this. Maybe black shouldn't castle, but do something faster on the king side, g4, h4. I don't exactly know, but I think just by looking at some of these lines, at least now we have a better understanding of how the dynamics work in these positions. Moments when we looked at f4, and then it wasn't really good to give up the bishop once we had our pawn on f4. As long as the pawn is on f2, there is a chance that we may want to give it up. In other moments, this knight e1, knight c2, knight e3 seemed really strong to attack the bishop on f5. So I'm very proud of your analysis, Nicola. And now we shall
Thank
look
you.
at the game.
Okay, no, this is okay. No, that c3 and ic2 plan seems to make sense. So
Yeah, yeah, I
okay,
think that's very good.
all right.
So
So
all this
what did
is,
they
of
actually play?
course, all this, of course, never happened, because in the very beginning, when I asked you how do we deal with this knight f4, we've looked at the three main possibilities. You mentioned all three: bishop f3, bishop g4, and bishop takes f4. And Alexandra went for bishop takes f4.
Okay.
We have been discussing this also in case of bishop f3, h5 to take here now. So it can be similar to that. It
Okay.
could actually transpose, because I think she'll end up playing bishop f3 later on. But in any case, the move order was bishop takes f4. Let me promote this. Bishop takes f4, g takes, and now Alexandra played a move that I'm not that sure of, even though it's looking natural. I'd like your assessment on this position now after the trade, and what moves do you consider as candidate moves?
Okay.
Same goes to you guys. How do you see this position for white? And what shall we play for? What pieces going where? What candidate moves are you considering? I'd like to ask about your intuition. again, first goes first, Nikola. If it was a blitz game, what move do you think would you be playing here?
Good question. I don't want to say dismiss this out of hand because this felt, you know, unpleasant because you have this rook here, you have the queen can come here, and all of a sudden you have, three, black pieces converging on the white king.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so white needs to do something because, bishop. I don't think the determination of the position is based on the fact that this pawn is, undefended and potentially weak. I think that the
Mm-hmm.
dynamics of the position count. Uh, I wonder what Alexandra played, actually, to be honest with you.
Hmm. It's not a bad move, I think, but when I was analyzing it, I wasn't sure if that's the most accurate. It's just once again a really unclear position.
Sure.
Um, but if you had to make a move, what do you think it would be?
I probably want to get rid of this bishop,
Mm-hmm.
so I can play something like this.
Yeah, simple. That's the most active piece
You
of
know,
black. It makes sense to get rid of it. Funnily enough, in these kind of structures, especially if it was the French defense, we would consider that the bad bishop. But in Caro-Kann, oftentimes white goes for the trade of that bishop because outside the pawn chain, outside this
yeah,
pyramid that or triangle that black has built, it actually is a very active piece, and it can
yes,
be annoying. It can be an
yes.
annoying piece. So bishop d3, I think, is the best move here, and that's why I was thinking maybe Alexandra's move is not the most precise because she made a move that's to that square but with another piece, knight to d3. I was wondering, of course this is not a mistake, but I think it might have been somewhat more accurate to play bishop d3, where black doesn't want to allow bishop takes f5, so you need to react to this move.
Yeah,
And if there's a trade, you come to d3 with the knight, but with the bishops off of the board.
sure. No, and then, if black needs to decide if it's defending this pawn or not, and something like this, and then
Yeah,
it's very quickly, very clearly, hugely advantageous for white.
yeah, it can become
Yeah,
really bad for black. I guess black is not forced to take, so I would expect Alexandra was perhaps considering moves like this that protect the bishop and also are preparing for rook g8, as you mentioned. So this isn't that simple, and now we are facing a question that will we still want to place the knight on d3, or are we going to use this tempo that we can gain with knight f3?
hmm. That's a very good question.
What does your intuition say? And then let's continue thinking.
Well, that knight feels very weird on e1. On the other hand, it's kind of defending the g2, which is the
Yeah.
key weakness. Oops. Hey, Sanjaram. 123, thank you for the follow. Very greatly appreciated. So the question here is, all right, this is a bullet game or blitz game. You just take, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. And then if black takes with a queen, then you can play queen f3. It's not immediate. Then, well, then you lose this pawn, which may or may not be relevant, but it is kind of relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have time to play c3? probably do. And then, yeah, there is this, you know. All right, so let me calculate this real quick. Okay, so takes, c3.
So you're pushing c3 to...
So I can play bishop, queen h3 to, or I can actually take stakes and I can play knight d3, which is probably a better sequence.
Uh-huh.
All right, so forget about c3 here. Take stakes, and then I'm gonna play queen f3 if black plays rook g8, and my queen is defending g2, and then next move I'm taking this pawn.
Yeah, let's play those moves out, because I think this is the best line. Taking and then using this square for the knight. It's tempting to attack the knight, to attack the queen with the knight jump, because that also improves the knight. But as you said, the knight actually was protecting g2, and from f3 it most certainly isn't. So once the queen drops back to, even if it's queen g7, but rook g8 will come next move, and we will still have to face this issue about the g5. So knight f3, even though is a one move attacking move, it doesn't really help on the long run.
No, the f3 is a place for the queen, and
Yeah,
once we
very good.
exchange white square bishops, nothing can kick that queen off f3.
Yeah, and in positions like rook g8, where now black could be threatening with ideas, you're just in time to place the queen on f3. As you said, it's perfect for the defense and for the attack.
Yes, and you know what, the only piece that black has that can kick the queen off f3 is that knight, and by the time that knight gets anywhere, it's, yeah, no, that looks like the best line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good.
Okay. All right.
So I think bishop d3 was more precise than the game, for these reasons. I was just analyzing a little bit moves like, after this trade. No, sorry, not taking. I think queen g5 is the best for black.
Okay.
Basically, everything we looked at, I think this is like my main line in this analysis, and I was just looking at options for black to try to break open our structure with c5, but this is an absolute mess. If we have time at the end, I can show you some of these positions because they are really instructive. Other than that, it will be in the annotations.
Okay.
So I think now let's see the game, and if we have time at the end, I can show you that position.
Okay. Thank you, Anna. Sure. Yeah.
So 93 was played. Yeah, sorry, Nikola there.
No, not at all. This is why one needs to think. The classical time is 90 plus 30 because it takes a while to evaluate this.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, a reminder, this was a blitz game, and for a blitz game, it's still a really high level game. But yeah, this is a really, really complicated position to play. So knight to d3 was played, and queen g5 is very logical, protects the pawn, and is ready to bring the rook to g8. Now Alexandra played queen to d2 to attack the pawn, and it's just in time.
Oof.
Just in time. Plus the bishop can come to f3, so I guess that was her backup plan in case she needs to. But it's a bit
it's hairy.
It is. Well, let me promote this line. I keep forgetting. So this is the actual game. What would you play here as black? What do you think would be your way to go if you had to play this with black?
Okay. Can I play c5?
c5 is always something to consider for sure.
Okay, and then if white takes, I can take on d3 and take on e5.
Mm-hmm.
At which point I'm bringing the knight into the attack, which is likely to be stronger than that light squared bishop. And I don't necessarily care what's going to happen on the queen side.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's one option.
Mm-hmm.
Another option is, hey, Shidotama, thank you for the follow. That's very greatly appreciated. Thank you. Another option is to play bishop e4
Mm-hmm.
and, kind of ask the question. Because if white plays the natural, uh, which is actually the plan that looks interesting, is to play bishop e4. What does white do? Almost has to push on f3, correct? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can play c5.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then after f3, I can even not bother with that. I can just play rook g8, and then bishop needs to go to d1 to defend the mate.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm feeling rather comfortable there. I can then remove the bishop, and then there is always the repeat of the c5 to c5 threat.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so one candidate move is c5, another is bishop e4.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
There is thematic f6, but that might be a little bit slow.
It's an option always in the air as well. You're right. C5
Yeah.
and F6 are moves that black should be looking at. So
Yeah.
very good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so let's draw that. And I think those are all the candidate moves, unless I'm missing something.
No, those are very much valid candidate moves.
I mean,
I think rook g8 can be added for the fact that
yes,
it threatens mating one,
yes.
but I guess maybe perhaps you didn't want to be looking at it that much because knight takes f4 takes the pawn and protects against the mate. But would
Yeah.
you consider this position still interesting for black?
Hmm.
Can you find any ways in which you can try to make white's life not that simple?
Okay, this is a very charged question. Okay.
Same goes to every dear
Uh,
viewer. How to continue here? We've just lost a pawn as black, so we better have something not direct. There's nothing direct, so this is not a mistake by white. It's not a losing position, but I'm looking for compensation, counterattack. Can black keep increasing that pressure at least?
okay. Well, there is no way for me to threaten the queen, because if I play bishop e4, c3, and I have strengthened white's position. I mean, hey, Cat's Just, thank you for the follow. I can play h6 and threaten h5 and threaten bishop h6,
Mm-hmm.
which actually is pretty strong.
Very good. Very well spotted. This isn't an easy thing to find. H5 to then probably have this square for the bishop.
Yeah.
Unconventional, but here could be extremely dangerous. Attacking the knight on f4, pinning the knight on f4. That knight is the one that's holding the king side of white. So suddenly this could become really tricky for white. How do we defend against this is now the new question.
Well, the queen is defended, so we can just move the knight and get mated on.
I was wondering where that line goes.
The reason why I liked bishop e4 is I really don't like white bishop to end up on f3 because then it
Mm-hmm.
kind of defends everything. So the white has to play bishop f3 here, otherwise it's going to get very tricky very quickly.
Does he have time for bishop f3 though?
Probably not.
Let's see.
All right, so bishop f3. Want me to make the moves, or you want me to calculate?
You can play bishop f3 and then see what's going
All
on
right,
there.
so this is
Blindfolded.
obvious.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and how do we not lose a piece?
Very good question. Do we have an answer?
Well, we can't play g3, and we don't really have a way to defend that knight.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I don't. Honestly, I don't think I would did knight f4 in a position like this. It's too risky,
Mm-hmm.
and this is why.
Yeah, very
I
good.
actually don't see
This
how
is
I don't see how we prevent loss of a piece here, to be, if there is one.
very good conclusion, because after bishop h6 there is no way of getting out of this for white if g3, as some of you mentioned. Unfortunately, the spin still exists, so black can still take on f4. It looks like it's hanging, but no, that's a pin.
Yeah,
Queen takes, bishop takes, black is a piece up.
and I just want to give, while Anna is putting this, a shout out to WGM Adriana Nikolova, who is a fellow streamer and a dear friend. She has her own stream and she's a relatively new streamer, and she's more than welcome in this channel. She's a great lady, and I hope to play an adoption match against her one of these days. She doesn't know it yet, so it's a secret.
Let's propose it now.
Yes,
but actually,
so,
I think it's good if you mention again the new series, because
yes.
I don't think everybody has heard.
All right, so there is a, thanks Anna. So there is a new, if you put exclamation mark adopt, the channel is gonna have a new series. It's gonna be Sundays at noon Eastern time, New York time, and it's gonna be called Adopt Nikola. It's I'm gonna propose a bounty for adoption, in adoption of myself, and I already have several candidates. But first match will be this coming Sunday against WGM Chiuju, who I actually never drew a game against. So she's a former world champion, and she's 400 elo points stronger than me, which basically means I am likely to find myself being adopted by a 20-year-old, which I have to say is somewhat interesting. But on the other hand, she is a very strong player and she's a great streamer, so it's going to be pretty fun. So, and Aryan Tari is going to commentate the match. So, anyway.
Aryan Tari himself is a former world junior champion, so quite a squad you have there for Sunday stream, Nikola.
And he's a number one player in Norway. Don't quote me.
Number one.
Soon to be.
So here, it's true that this position is a piece up for black. Maybe earlier white can try to do something else after h5. If white goes g3 earlier, I think that was another suggestion by a couple of you. Yes, that helps to not get mated. Question again, what's next though? These are just really difficult positions.
Yeah,
but at least one move.
Let's put it this way. This is the type of position I would love to play as black.
Yeah, me too. And it's a pawn down. So imagine, Nikola, if I want to play this from black's perspective and it's a pawn down.
All right, so, okay, who is this and where is Anna?
Somebody has eaten the real Anna. Yeah, I've had a lot of chocolate earlier. But yeah, even if white gets out of the immediate threats, because we are not getting mated on g2 and we are not losing the knight, this is still a really complex position, and I think black has at least enough compensation with so much activity on the king side. Finally, black could also castle if they want to, or h4. So this is a nice position for black,
Yes.
but a mess overall.
Yeah. No, that knight f4 thing is too dangerous. Even if
Mm,
there is a line that kind of saves white, I really wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to
yeah,
do this. Okay.
I agree with you. The problem is after rook g8, even if we don't want to do this, it's very difficult not to enter this line. So what else is there for white?
Well, there's this proverbial bishop f3 that we kind of concluded is not good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And knight f4 doesn't work. Queen f4 results in a mate. g3 is actually g3 may work.
Mm. We should definitely look at it.
Yeah,
G3.
it it requires a certain level of fearlessness.
Hmm, it does.
All right, so what does black do here?
Good question. How would you continue here? Now we're gonna look at it from black's perspective.
Well, taking doesn't work for the simple reason that we don't exchange the queens. You know what? The plan with h5 and bishop h6 is still valid, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Very true. It could transpose.
yeah,
What's the difference then? Let's take a look at this move because it would be very tempting for black to try to do the same with h5 bishop h6.
there is one extra tempo.
Mm-hmm. And what will white do with that?
White would find a way to get out, and all of a sudden, knight on f4 is not defending the mate.
Mm-hmm.
So if we play something along the lines of this, and then knight f4 and this, white actually has time to come back to d3.
Sorry, so g3 h5.
Oh, I am sorry. I found an extra tempo that doesn't exist. My bad.
I
Sorry.
was wondering where does
Sorry.
it come from
Sorry.
because it sounds so good that I wish we could play
Sorry, my
it.
bad. I gave white an extra tempo. How nice of me. Okay. Okay. So all right.
h5. Let's make this move on the board as well and see now the whole story from white's perspective, how to react to h5.
Well, I can actually now take with the queen. Right. So that's
Mm-hmm.
one difference.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's one difference. And I'm almost tempted to say that's sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So you're saying move by move it would be.
Well, let's see here. I'm gonna take, and then
Huh?
black doesn't want to exchange queens for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So it would need to play here with a threat of bishop on h6, in which my queen is on a little bit of distress.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's actually quite interesting. And what do I do then? Is it actually playable for black like this? It looks like it.
I think it is playable.
It's quite playable, yeah.
Yeah. So even this move order, where this has to be an improvement for white in comparison to the
Yeah,
other line with the
absolutely.
knight on f4. But even like this, it's not like
No.
white is a clear pawn up and much better. It's a messy position where where black has some compensation at least.
Yeah, and where is the queen going?
Yeah.
Not to mention that some line along the lines put it here, played this, and then this pawn is all of a sudden becoming a monster.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, these are all really messy positions. Um, the game, it was. Do you think this was the game, Nicola? I don't even know if I should ask, but let's
No.
try.
Hello, Julian.
Hi, Julian.
Just wanted to give you a shout out to my dear friend, and we were collectively swindled this morning by the one of the greatest swindles of all time, Alessia Santeramo,
Oh,
into playing a hand and brain game against her and singing Bella Ciao in duet, which somehow I know for a fact we're gonna end up singing. So anyway, so Julian, let's start practicing. It's good. It's always a pleasure to see you in my channel. You're always more than welcome.
I can't wait to see that cover. I think now that's something else to look forward to.
Well, I already sang Bella Ciao once solo.
I know, but now it's a duet
Now
again,
me
a
and
different
Julian,
combination.
it's fine. So Julian, we need to win that game. I'm sorry. Anyway, all right.
So the game could have continued like this had it been for Rook G8. This was all coming from Rook G8 and then Knight F4 H5. Maybe that's the move that Bella missed. I'm pretty sure she was looking at Rook G8 because that's the most straightforward. But once again, this is a blitz game, so she ended up taking the knight to prevent Knight takes F4. It's logical in a quick decision
Okay.
situation that you prevent Knight takes F4 by capturing, and then after actually I'm not gonna say which of these three. I'm gonna ask before I talk. How would you take back, Nikola?
Good question. And by the way, I'm very proud of myself that I spotted a line that 2600. Is Alexander over 20? No, they're both over 2500.
Over 25. I think both of them had really high peak ratings too.
Yeah,
So obviously Alexander Kostanjuk and Bella Kotanishvili, two
sure,
of the top female chess players
sure.
in the world. Um,
I think Alexander is actually currently number 6 or number 5, and I know Anna Muzichuk is number 4. So,
hmm.
okay, so all right, I do want to preserve the option of playing bishop on f3, and I don't want to allow that f3 annoyance. So I can. It's actually funny. Bishop d3 appears to be the natural move, but we still have that nastiness on rook g8, and how do we defend the mate?
Mm-hmm.
And a c5 in this position is even stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And funny thing is, bishop and queen are actually in it best placed exactly where they are. So let's take with a pawn.
Wow, I didn't think you would come to that conclusion.
Okay, am I wrong?
I don't know.
Okay,
I
that
don't
means
know.
I am, but okay.
No, it's interesting. Honestly, I think c takes and queen takes are the moves that make the most sense. That's why I was curious which moves out of the three, because what I wanted to hear, and you did say, is that you don't really want to take with the bishop. Because this would be such a natural move, but it doesn't work with the current position. We need
No.
that bishop on f3. As you mentioned, you want that to be protecting the king. We don't really want to be playing g3, even if it's okay. It's just like um not an ideal situation
No,
to be in. And
that's
f6 is always an option. c5 f6. Those pawn pushes are
and
always in the air.
and the h5 is still
Oh
looming.
yeah, c5 f6 h5. Perhaps h5 is the strongest, as you mentioned. I forgot to to add that to the list, and maybe that's the best move here. So I'm glad that you ruled out bishop takes d3. That was the main task,
Okay.
to not say that. Not that it's a blunder, but it doesn't help White's situation to
No.
create a solid defense on the king side. So queen
Okay.
takes or c takes do help in that sense. C takes is interesting, because then we're gonna place the bishop on f3. So this really is an interesting position, and we are already with having a semi-open c file, and most likely black will castle
Sure.
queenside. So it makes sense to want to have that c
And
file for the
and
rook.
knight a5 is actually a pretty interesting move.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. So this
Hey.
is really an interesting position.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you there,
No, no, no,
Nikola.
not at all. I'm just okay, but this is significantly less messy too.
Yeah, we are getting into a not that terribly complex position, but there will be turns. Don't
Okay.
worry.
I'm not. All right.
Alexander took back with the queen. I think both c takes and queen takes are
Okay.
good. H5 was played. Castle queenside, I think, would have been the other main alternative of Bella. She went for
Okay.
h5 first, and now once again the question is, what's next for White?
All right. So just a quick shout out to Henrik. Henrik DZ. No, there is no issue with Queen D3. That's actually the move that was played. It's perfectly fine. I would have actually, if I had time to think about it, I would have probably taken with the pawn. But if I didn't, I would take with the queen. The whole thing here is that taking with the bishop doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
And
very good.
but Buchanan, you're never late and you're always welcome. So we started early. Okay, so well, the bishop h6 doesn't have the same punch in this position. So
Yeah.
you know, if I'm playing this, I'm probably shoring up the position by playing bishop f3. That's like a bullet or a blitz game.
Yep, that's what Alexander played.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfectly sensible move. As you said, we are making that kingside bulletproof. This is a good move. Now that we have a good move, let's look for a better one.
Okay. In other words, better move than a former world
A former world champions
champion and
move.
25, 50
Yes.
plus grandmaster played. Okay. Thank
Yes.
you, Anna. That's a huge compliment. Okay.
So bishop f3 is completely fine, and white is better. But I'm curious if we can find an even stronger move, if there is one.
All right. C4 is. I keep returning to C4 because it's thematic in Caracan, but that's not what was played. The only other move that makes sense is knight a5.
So you're saying c4 or knight a5?
C4 might. Well, C4 is dangerous because it opens up potentially the C file. Actually, both of those are good. Knight a5 is annoying because, you know, if black castles long, actually those two go in combination. I'm trying to see if we can sacrifice on b7, play queen a6, then somehow bring the rook to bear. But that we may not have enough firepower to do that.
So after knight a5, what do you think black should do?
Danny, my friend, it's always good to see you. Thank you for joining us. What should black do? Very good question. He cannot play. How do we defend that pawn? And do we defend this pawn? Are we going to declare that by the time that knights finish hopping, we can get our pawn to h3 and keep attacking?
Because if black plays a move like rook b8 or castle queenside. Well, which one would you like to start with?
Castling queenside is
I'm gonna start with that. I know
it's
it's a move you would never play.
is dangerous, but
Yes, to say the least.
yeah, I mean that's an immediate c4,
Yep.
an immediate c.
C4,
It's an immediate
C4, and I'm pretty sure you're also considering if you can take
yes,
immediately.
yes, or even take better yet take on c6.
Yeah, C4 or calculate the sacrifices,
Yeah,
but this is bad, really bad for black castling into it, into the attack. So
well,
rook b8. We
he
can look at that further if you want to, but I'm pretty sure that you could lead this attack for white by intuition.
no, I'm black. I'm not. Um,
You're not castling into it with black, I
no,
think.
I'm not castling into that. No.
Okay, so rook b8 would be the other way of defending the
Rook
pawn.
b8 is a little committal. And
Hmm.
just for my friend Danny, I still have my rubber hat. It's right here. So no worries. And I'm actually, we're going to have a hats featured on one of these streams.
I
Very
really like your
soon.
hat collection. I'm a hat person
Oh,
myself.
thank you. Actually, I, I haven't really shown much of it. I'll bring them
I've
up
seen
one
a
of these
couple of
days.
your other streams, not only our
Ah,
Wednesdays
thank you.
ones, but I should say that I never watch your stream so that you're not stressed out when you'll be playing the adoption matches and I'm watching. So I don't watch Nikola. I don't ever watch his streams. It's not like I have seen a couple of other heads and I have seen some of the sub battles and I'm gonna be watching the adoption tournament. But anyway, back to the game.
Okay, this is close as Anna will ever get to roasting anyone. So there we go. Okay, so uh, we can play c4 here.
Uh-huh.
It's
And you were saying that rook bait is committal because
we can't castle.
very, very important point.
Yeah, and now we're stuck there, and that's it's a little bit dangerous. It's not immediately dangerous, but c4 is threatening, and then just to show a couple of things. C4. This if this takes, then bishop comes to an f3, which it needs to go. Then this pawn is a little challenge. This knight can then take on b7. We can, and then we have open c file. It can get very unpleasant for black very quickly.
Mm-hmm. True, very true.
So if you're asking me how would I defend the pawn on b7, my answer would be I wouldn't.
Very good answer. I think that's the best for the reasons you mentioned. Castle queenside is a suicide, rook b8 is too committal, and c4 comes with a really powerful position for white. So black has to go for
Yeah.
counterattack.
So that's the defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, h4 is definitely one of the options. You can also start with rook g8 to force bishop f3. Depends on if you want the rook on the g file or not. And then another move that you mentioned in other positions is c5. I'd like you to think about this for a moment.
Okay.
If it's a good moment for c5 or not.
Okay. And just hashtag go. Good night. Thank you for
Good
your
night. Thank you
kind
so much
words.
for hanging out with us and for
Good night.
working through these really difficult positions. Hashtag I'm so proud of you because you've just started. Basically, you've been starting out with chess together with the rest of my community, and I'm really proud of you for working through these
Yeah.
difficult positions too.
It's messy.
It really is messy.
It's very messy. Um,
And black can always so c5 immediately or rook g8 bishop f3 c5. Black always has that option of including the rook move.
yeah, c5 has been the problem is I don't like for white takes and then takes on e5
Mm-hmm.
because that's dangerous. So
Yep.
And if white defends by playing c3, then black can play c4 and kind of lock that queen side down, and that knight on a5 becomes a wandering knight. But is c4 realistically an option? Can white take on c4?
So c5, c4 immediately.
So c5, it can play c3, okay, or it can play c4, which is probably a better move.
Because you wanna tear open the position for the fact that the black king is still in the middle of the board.
Yeah, and I have two rooks that are one move away from being very active and very dangerous. All right, so black takes on d4, which is obvious move. I can even take on. Do I take on d5 first? Oof. Okay.
Also, for all these positions, do you think is it worth for black to include this or not? Because remember that you can always include that.
Yeah.
So, like even before we play c5, this can also be a move order and then c5. The question is, does that help black, or does that position help white that the bishop is in f3? What do you think?
The question here is if c5, I think c4 is the natural answer.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, and that's actually a standard thing in Caro-Kann to play this.
True. Very good.
The question here is, what does black do here? And black shouldn't really take on c4 because that's too dangerous. Because that queen, if she gains access in there, and if he takes on d4, the possible line is take with a queen and then take here. Well, okay, sorry, I'm jumping all over the line. So takes.
Yeah.
White takes, right?
Yep.
And then black takes on e5. But then we have this beauty here.
Yeah.
And you cannot return to d7. Well, you can, because there is the pawn is blocking here.
Do you want to play out those moves to see?
Yeah, let's play them out. So this and this and this, right? This. And now what does black do here? All right. Black had some immediate threats, this being pretty obvious. So we need to, if black plays queen d8, then this is curtains, or close to it. All right. So, but what would do if black plays king e7, then king b7, and then this rook is dead, and after king e6, we can, the question here is, how do we defend the mate? Oh boy, this is messy. So takes. Okay. I think I know the solution. It's actually
You want to show it to us?
it's actually quite pretty. So this
Yeah.
I can can I the question here is basically what I want to do. I want to play d6 and then defending g2 here.
Uh-huh.
Or all right, so here.
Yeah.
And now what? I can play this check.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I got it. So this king is 7, and then where does the king go? King can go on f6.
Yeah.
At which point I'm taking here, and white pushes f3 is going to get checkmated on f7.
Is that checkmate?
Oh, it's not. It's Bottas Gambit. Thank you, Nikola.
Just testing you.
I did that to myself more than once, including in one of our games.
Yes, that is correct. So in that position, let's just think, are you getting mated if you take the rook? King e7, queen takes b7, king f6, queen takes a8. Is there mate for black?
Well, what I do on f3?
Let's see.
I can. All right. So you want me to play this out?
You can play those moves, yes, because it's a lengthy line.
All right. So here, 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 and I was really hoping that I can take this and kind of defend g2, but I can't. So all right, there and this. Well, there is not direct mate. I can play g3, which doesn't look good. Oops. Or I can take, and then after this, I play here. And what's the mating threat? Let me think for a second.
Sure.
I can play this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can play this. I mean, I'm an exchange up.
Yeah.
But
how do you evaluate this position? And it's a difficult one, so I'm happy.
I don't see a direct mate. But I would prefer to play black here, actually.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because this is a mess, but it's more dangerous for white.
Yes.
Also, on a side note, there's something even stronger than rook g8. Rook g8 is really interesting, and I think leads to an at least unclear position, but there's something even better here for black.
Okay, then I didn't see it. Let me see.
It's not easy to see at all, so don't worry.
No, that's fine. Okay. All right. Yes, I can play this. And then
threatening mate in 1, so white has to. How shall I react as white to this?
If I play, okay, so let me just show this. If I take, then this is kind of, but it takes the rook with a check, so you can't do that. But actually a good question. I guess I would play this. And now what?
So G takes F3 in the other line, instead of H3. You said it was that refuted in the end with
Well,
bishop D6.
I, the issue here is, well, we can play this, right?
Oh, so you're waiting with bishop D6.
Correct. And then what is, well, there is a small problem of this. This,
Small problem.
and then I am dead. Okay, so that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So you are saying that in this position there is a better move, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But you have seen the tactical motives and the ideas. It's just to put it together.
No, I'm blind. This is probably a better move, right?
What's the difference?
Well, if he takes an F3, I take with a queen. And
yeah,
queen
that's
G,
being a major difference.
That's a small difference. Yeah.
Very good job. Yeah, queen F4 threatening mate the same way, and the knight cannot be taken.
Yeah.
And if G3, if I place G3,
if I play G3, then I can play queen G4 and queen H3, and that's mate, right? Or am I missing something again?
I don't know. You tell me, Nikola.
I love when Anna says I don't know. Okay. So what am I? Oh yeah, okay. I can play queen E4.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is really no way of stopping the mate on G2.
Very good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, after all this,
you know what's funny, and I'm not using this as a defense. It's a great exercise. It's you know, it's I'm actually going to practice this because if the board was flipped, it's easier to see it. Anyway, all right,
that makes sense.
That's actually a very lame excuse, but that's sadly true.
No, but it's true. And if you want to, you can flip the board.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I actually need to practice this. So.
But before you flip the board, let me ask you now for white, instead of G3, now we gotta find a better move.
Okay.
So on move 20 after F3 for black, we looked at bishop takes F3, we looked at G3. We gotta find something better.
Okay. Well, we have a mate on G2 to contend with, right?
Yeah, minor issue to deal with.
Well, we can give that fabled check on D8.
Mm-hmm. What does it change?
Is that, well, we can exchange queens, and if it plays bishop E7, we take the rook on H8, and that's actually the winning line in this position.
Yeah, once again, that's checks. It's so important that after bishop E7, queen H8 is check, yes.
Yeah. So basically, which brings us to the whole go on white and attack. That line seems to be holding then.
Holding for whom?
For white, meaning this is...
Yeah. So this is a good line for white. Yes, sorry, I didn't understand that, which one you referred to.
Fine.
Which leads us to the conclusion that, remember that before we started, well, like when we started this whole line with C5, we were always saying that you can either play it this way or you can include a pair of moves. Now, would that make a difference in any of those lines? Imagine the line with the king on E7, queen B7, queen capturing the rook on A8. Do you remember the pair of moves we were thinking to include, and would that make a difference?
We wanted to include bishop F3. Or
so for black, which move is that? I'm testing you. No, it's after over 2 hours. No, we've been already torturing you, Nikola, for 2 hours, so it's okay.
Look, one of those adoption matches are going to last at least 2 hours, so I need to be you know. All right, so we were
I went
talking.
back to the position.
Yeah, and the what we were considering is the bishop f3 and h4, right?
But for black, remember that we were saying after knight a5,
Oh, we were
c5.
talking about rook g8 and bishop f3.
Yes. So if you now go back in your mind
No,
to the lines that you were calculating,
no,
especially
bishop
this.
g8 is not defended, which basically is a major difference.
Yeah. So if we
Yeah.
play the exact same lines, can you play the exact same lines but with that pair of moves included?
Sure. So rook g8, bishop f3, and we then played c4. Oh, I'm sorry, it's c5, c4, takes, knight e5, queen b5, this here. And this is actually not only is we cannot actually play this because this bishop is now here, which means it's immediate threat, and this is defended. So yeah,
very good point.
Yeah, so there goes the whole evaluation.
But it was really important that you went through the other line to understand the tiny difference. I mean, a pair of moves, but it makes a huge difference in the end. It's a very good job.
Yeah. And I kept thinking that there is a way to just somehow remove that pawn on d5, but there isn't. We don't have time to do that.
So with a move like, yeah, d6, but then there's no queen b7 with check, yes.
Okay. All right.
But these are very interesting lines, and once again, it's c5, c4. It's a complete chaos. I think this was the way to go for black. If knight a5 would have been played, so your intuition was totally right that castle queenside for black after knight a5 is basically suicide. Rook b8 is too committal, and c4 after rook b8 is really a strong move. So this is the way to go for black. Black has to just give up on the idea of protecting that pawn and play for this idea with c5, rook g8, bishop f3, c5 seems to be the most precise, and this is just an absolute mess.
Yeah. Hey Kitty, welcome to the stream. Thank you. It's always good to see you here. Thank you so much.
Hi Kitty, I hope you're doing well. I've been already torturing Nikola for over 2 hours, and I'm very proud of that achievement. And we are not done. We are not done. This is not the game. This is, of course, not the game.
This is actually. You were saying that that this was far from one-sided game. This was actually a very interesting game with lots of counterplay and counter chances. Yeah. Okay, but so none of this was played in the game, right?
Of course not. Knight a5, I think, was one of the most critical moves. c4, similar idea, but without the knight jump, so that actually goes ahead of c5 and pushes c4 immediately would have been another strong move, I think. Alexandra went for the move that you also mentioned. So you mentioned all the moves that actually are the top moves in this position. Bishop f3. After bishop f3, black played h4, which is logical. But we're gonna look at the game a little bit and then come back to this moment to see if there was anything stronger than h4. How would you react to h4?
As white?
Yes.
Well, we can still play knight e5. Though, well, we can. There's this c4 motive that has been there forever. And I actually don't see anything else. Okay.
So you are not worried about the king side.
A little bit, but uh, you know, there aren't there aren't any immediate threats. The real
Mm-hmm.
problem is that, this whole motive that we just looked at, which is basically play c5
Yeah.
with an idea of threatening to take on e5, is still a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I can get ultra defensive and and play king h1 and then put the rook on g1, but that looks ugly.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, don't see anything else. And it might be that my intuition is failing me. Won't be the
No, it
first
never
time.
fails you. I
No,
think
no,
knight
oh,
a5,
geez, please.
knight a5. Most of the times it doesn't fail you. I'm gonna correct myself there because
Okay, thank you.
a very few times you don't find the dynamically best move. So I do think that Nikola has a really good intuition in dynamic positions.
Okay.
And these are the kind of positions where you are like knight a5, c4, and those are some of the top moves in the position. My curiosity was whether you would consider preventing h3 or not. So you're not worried about black pushing h3.
Uh, Playing h3, it has advantages, actually.
So you want black to push h3.
But what exactly, I mean, if blacks. Well, okay, let me say this. I can almost guarantee you that Alexandra played h3 in this position.
Yeah. How do you know?
Because there are two things I know about Alexandra Kostyuk, for whom I have a huge respect, as I think everybody knows. Number one is she's the most fierce competitor I know, and that includes Alexandra Bottas. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, she's as deadly serious about her chess than anybody has been ever about anything. And that's
Mm-hmm.
a huge compliment, incidentally.
Yeah.
Number three, she's an extremely solid player that will get into messiness if she needs to, but she prefers not to.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, she played h3, I have no doubt.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
guessed right? Yeah, yeah.
You guessed it very well. And the reasoning too. Um, yes, she doesn't want to allow h3, but knight a5 and c4 were some of the other main options. And I think this is the kind of position where it also depends on style. And in this case, perhaps to the time control, that in a blitz game, she didn't feel like she wants to see that push h4 to h3. But yes, knight a5 makes perfect sense to go for something direct on the opposite flank. So I definitely welcome the suggestions that you have made, Nicholas. Those are some of the other best moves, and I'm frankly not sure if knight a5 or h3 or c4 is stronger because there's just such a mess in every line that I don't think that the
Yeah.
0.12, 0.20 difference in evaluation makes any sense here.
Okay.
So h3 was played, but knight a5, as you said, makes perfect
Okay.
sense as well. And after h3, bishop e7. I'm actually let me just see this for a second. Yeah, let's take a look at some of the next moves, and that means that you will have to keep guessing Alexandra's moves, and then we will come back to the moment where black pushed h4.
Okay.
So this is still your goal with the white pieces, and how would you proceed?
How would I proceed, or what I'm guessing Alexandra played?
Let's say first your intuition, and then what would you play if you were Alexandra? No, I'm curious about your intuition and what would you play in a game?
Okay, so the famous knight f5 is still an option. Black is actually threatening to castle and bring the other rook on. I'm not saying that this is still not a suicide, but it's actually less dangerous than it was when the bishop was on e2. We can still play c4, but the punch of it has gone because, you know, there is a... Okay. I mean, c5 is still a potential threat. So what am I playing in this position? I'd probably just play knight a5. And I'm almost positive that that's not what Alexandra played. There's really nothing black can really do here to more solidify the king side.
Yeah, white has built a very safe and solid setup.
Yeah.
Fixing the pawn structure, having the bishop on f3. Therefore, you are right. It's time to look at the other flank of the board. We cannot make more prophylactic moves, and there's no need for moving the king out of the h file and such when there's already enough defense.
Yeah.
So knight a5 and c4 are the top two moves.
Yeah.
And Alexander went for knight a5 too.
Oh, okay.
Knight a5 and well, black, I guess not with a light heart, but eventually decided to protect the pawn. Would you consider anything else here for black?
Black played rook b8.
Rook b8, yeah.
Well, let's yes, for Puccino, every Sunday at noon there will be an adoption match, correct? Okay. Well, it's less dangerous than it was with the bishop on e2. In other words, the price of bishop f3 is that there is now less firepower over there. So it's a little bit less dangerous. Black cannot really defend that pawn dynamically like it had when we last time looked at it. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It's my miscalculation. Is it really Saturday? Yeah, it is. Okay, well, I'll correct the adopt command. My bad. It's on Sundays. Okay. Thanks for pointing that out.
So it's every Sunday your adoption
It's
matches.
every Sunday, correct.
So knight a5, rook b8 was played.
Okay,
and
so
the
we're gonna
question
play,
is
and
if you would have gone for something else.
You know, I have to make an admission. I would rather castle here than play rook b8.
Let's take a look at that.
Okay. All right, so obviously c5 is now, I don't want to say off the table, but significantly more dangerous. The immediate option is to play b4 and play b5 and threaten this pawn twice. And then if the queen comes here, then it gets a little bit jittery. And if black plays a6, black play a4 and then pushes to b5.
Yep.
That appears like a normal line of attack. And well, can we actually push b4 immediately and then we just be losing the pawn? But on the other hand, we would be opening the b file. Let's see something. And just indulge me for a second. Let's see, for example, We play this, this takes. I'm creating a bigger mess than they played.
But this is a very promising mess.
But this looks like it's winning for white.
I think it has to be, yes.
Yeah, because what does, if black doesn't take, queen goes to a6, and that's curtains.
Yeah. And if black doesn't take the pawn on b4,
then we follow with a plan to play b5.
Yeah.
And if black takes with the king, then one of the rooks comes here. And then how do we defend this? If we play c5, it's definitely ugly. I mean,
Yeah.
we play a3 and c4, and black is going to get mated at some point, and then we can take this. That pawn is pinned, so there is not even c4.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's over.
Yeah.
So really, I cannot castle.
Yeah, I guess that was
That's the conclusion.
black's reasoning too, that you wish you could, but
you
unfortunately
can't.
it doesn't work. I was analyzing this position a little bit with the engine along the same lines that we had in other positions, but it just looks like such a nightmare. I think maybe it still makes some sense, but I can totally understand why black didn't go for this here, because I was looking at positions like this, and this, and the engine is still happily trying to hold this, but I don't think any human being would be happy trying to defend this. This is like,
20,
it looks like
20 moves number one, and the difference in evaluation is +/-8.
Yeah, that's the thing. So white is better in every position, even with perfect defense by black. And that, as you said, it includes a lot of only moves. Like, I think in this position, one of the few moves that black has to find is rook to c8, because apparently queen c6 is such a big threat that you cannot allow it. And moves like queen takes e5 don't work.
Queen c6
because of that
is
of that move. So it's just like, yeah, really? Curtains of the queen c6, is it?
Okay.
So yeah,
right.
I'm telling you, I don't think anybody would have gone for c5 in that position, because you look at queen b5 and you say, game over, I cannot castle, the knight is pinned.
It's like the famous Caruana endgame, in which Caruana could have won if he stalemate, if he basically trapped his own knight.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. All right, whatever. Okay.
So instead of all this, rook b8 happened in the game, and it's your turn again with white.
Okay. Okay, so c4 is still the traditional breakthrough.
Yep.
And I don't see anything else in here.
That's because that's the best move. Very good job.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see anything else.
Really good job, yes. I think this is a really sad position for black. As you said, rook b8 is committal, so now the king is stuck on e8. Castle kingside is an option, but even if we don't give mate to the king on g8, what do you think of this position? How would you continue here?
Castling short.
Yes. For the lack of castling.
I have actually made a couple of castles that were similarly brave, but okay. Well, here is the reverse of the plan applies. It's basically white who can move the king, play g3, and starts attacking on the g file.
Also an option, yeah.
outside of that, uh, white can continue playing on the queen side
Mm-hmm.
because now there is no attack,
Yep.
which basically means breaks the rook. It's almost like a minority attack.
Yeah, very true.
Just, black can even, well, yeah, you can push this and then push b4 and then open the b file, doubles the rooks, and basically win the game because black will not have time to do anything, and after c5 these are useless.
Yeah,
And he
very good point.
can't play b6 because this is gonna fall. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually, yeah, wow.
Yep, c5 is one of the best moves here. I also would like to know your opinion on this trade and how do you think black will take back?
Okay. If they took on d5, the problem is that if they take, black cannot take with a c pawn because it's, if he takes with the takes with the c pawn, then it's white who is going to dominate the c file.
Yes. And you said that white can play for just a queen size pressure and white is way ahead.
Yes, because it
in
has
that,
more
so
space and it's going to be able to, yeah, and then I can play
either
that
this
or
or
the
that
other
rook.
rook, doesn't even
Yeah,
matter. You
yeah,
cannot kick this knight, this poor rook cannot leave this b file, and if he leaves there is a knight c6 jump, and
yeah.
it's, yeah, and that's good. If when the white rook gets to c7, it's going to be very ugly for black.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the,
And if black takes back with the e pawn,
oops, okay. Well, this is better.
mm-hmm.
But I mean, there is, we can still push a3, b4, play b5, and do the minority attack, but that might be a little bit slow here.
Mm-hmm.
We can use some e6 motives.
Mm-hmm.
We can play bishop g4, though that bishop on f3 is actually very well placed. It's surprisingly how good this knight on a5 is.
Yes. Not the usual square for the knight. But with this pawn structure, putting pressure on b7 and not allowing it to be pushed because of c6.
Yeah. So well, we can play bishop g4, put the rook on e1, push on e6, and the black king is in danger, but that's not clear. We can also push the king and actually play g3 and try to actually use the g file for our own benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I don't have a plan that I like here for white, surprisingly enough.
No. You prefer c5 and b4, b5.
Oh, I would actually.
That's totally fine too. These are just different ideas, and which position you prefer personally
Sure.
matters more
I,
than
Yeah, I can play minority attack and I still have more space.
Yeah.
And, these pawns are busted.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I mean, I don't want to ask what the computer. Hey, Chess Karaoke,
Hmm.
thank you for the sub. That's very greatly appreciated. I don't really know. Um, yeah, I think minority attack might be slow, but it's gonna end up in a result. Black really
Mm-hmm.
has nothing.
Yeah, that's the main issue of black, that black doesn't have active counter chances here.
Yeah, and this
Yeah,
is
I
it.
think any of these positions that you mentioned, the c5, b4, b5, or taking and now bishop g4, there's nothing concrete here. It's just simply a strategically better position for many reasons.
No, this is where I get myself into trouble because I sometimes in the games I don't have the patience to do the
Hmm.
slow a4 b4 b5 thing.
I see.
But
That's
that's a
why we are
clear
training.
that's a clear plan. That's why we're doing this. Yes,
Yeah.
among other reasons.
I
Okay.
think in this position, I do have confidence in that you would actually go for it in a game too, even if it's blitz or such, because another feature in the position is that black's pawn structure on the king side is a nightmare. So even in an endgame, if we just get rid of the queens in this position,
Oh yes.
that's a really bad endgame. So you are in not no hurry at all to go for king h2, rook g1, g3, which is one of the options. So that's totally fine as an option. But I think you can push first on the queen side, see what you achieve there, and if you don't get through with the minority attack, you can then swap to the king side because black doesn't have any active counterplay, and that's a real issue here. That it's just such a passive position for black.
So did actually Bella play this castle kingside?
No, but something actually similar for once. Actually, something similar for once because she realized that the position is opening up. She cannot leave her king on e8 forever, so she went for king f8.
Okay.
Your turn.
Well, leaving king there, okay, rooks unconnected in this case is an advantage because that rook sits better on h8 than on
Hmm.
f8.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Okay, so I think the plan as we outlined before is still quite valid. I don't think that anything changed with the king f8 position move interjection. We can still continue with the minority attack.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the options. Yes.
Okay.
And in
Uh,
terms of the other lines that you were looking at that were a bit more concrete, what what difference does it make that the king is on f8?
hmm.
There's nothing really concrete, so it's just like a minor thing. I'm asking these lines.
You know,
Obviously, in the other line too, you were saying if black opens up the c file, this is just a dream position for white.
yeah,
So the
that's
question becomes what happens in comparison to the other line where black castled and then we would take. Now that the king is on f8, does is this better or worse for white? A better or worse version if we take on d5?
well, rook on h8 is better placed than on f8. That's for sure. Um, Actually, to be quite frank, Anna, I don't see a meaningful line in which the difference between e8 and f8 makes a difference. I might be
Hmm.
blind. I mean, there is a
I was just curious if this feels as safe to you as the other one, just by intuition. There's
for
nothing
black.
really that concrete. Yeah.
I think this is a better position for black than the one we just looked at.
Hmm.
And that means I'm wrong. So,
No, these are really complex positions, so there's
sure.
no straightforward answer. I think one issue some of you pointed out about the knight on d7 and such, is that if you now start going for something concrete, like you mentioned bishop g4 in the other line, black one in the position where black castled, there were options of rook d8, for instance, protecting the knight and keeping the other rook on b8 because it's really passive, but black has to be holding on to everything.
Yeah.
Here there's no rook d8, so there's one option that does
Correct.
not
That,
exist.
yeah, I understand.
It doesn't mean that this is a refutation or anything, but
No, I
black now
understand.
has to go away with the knight. And then the new question is, what have we achieved here as white? Do we have a plan that you like here for white? Because it really is just a tiny difference. Because black is aiming for king g7, so the king will not stay on f8. Black will connect the rooks, I'm guessing, if this would have been the line in the game.
Well, we can try to push e6 and open the e file. Which, I don't think black is going to be obliging to do that for us. And as Thinker Teacher said, play queen f5, try to exchange queens, which actually does make a difference, because if we play queen f5, black is almost forced to change queens. So that's a good candidate move here. And that actually is a big difference because now there is a motives with e6 that weren't there when the king was on g8 or even e8.
Yeah.
So the question here is, if we actually exchange queens, do we not abandon quite a lot of our advantage in the process?
Yep, very good point.
Yeah. On the other hand, how do we continue to attack here?
So your intuition move about trying to open up the position with e6, how do you see that if you go into that move a little bit to think about that position?
Okay, so I wouldn't play e6 here, though I can, and then take with a bishop.
You would prepare for pushing e6.
I would probably put the rook here so I can take on e6 with the rook if black takes.
Makes sense.
Okay. I mean, this rook, neither of these rooks are doing much, so either one of them would be advantageous. I don't think black can jump on c4 and lose a pawn. And I don't think this jump on a4 achieves anything. So the thing here is black's position after king g7. That significantly improved that I don't want to play rook a1 and then push. Okay.
What do you think? Rook e1 and e6, or something else? And what does your intuition say in terms of how likely is that he would go for this in the game? That kind of plan.
This is actually really a position that I have difficulty evaluating, in all frankness and honesty, or finding the right plan. I think sometimes one of the reasons why I like attacking chess is that you don't need to, if you're trying to mate the king, you don't need to worry about, coming up with a positional plan. So if you're asking me what I'm playing here, I can play g3.
G3?
Yeah.
So you're abandoning your rook e1 e6 idea.
No, I'm evaluating my options, and well, what does black do if I play g3?
Very good question. That's super forcing if you suddenly try to open up the king side.
All right, so let's be realistic. I still have that minority attack, and
Yes.
push to b5, and then exchange here. Push on c6.
Mm-hmm.
But the big difference in this position is, this is basically unbreachable fortress. This too,
Mm-hmm.
it cannot be undermined. No piece can get to it.
Yeah.
So why don't we not open the f file and take the advantage of the king on f8?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. G3.
Yeah,
It's one of the better moves here. But also rook e1 and e6. I was curious if you pick one or the other, because both of them are, I think, some of the best plans for white. Honestly,
there are better plans than g3. I know that.
I'm not sure. And once again, I really don't want to be comparing the lines in terms of how much evaluation, as long as it's an advantage for white and you keep making progress. So obviously for the engine there'll always be a difference whether you play rook e1 first or e6 or g3, or uh, it also wants to go knight b3, knight c5. There's many ideas that for the engine are, some are better 0.10 or 0. I mean, not sorry, not all of them are better for white, but the difference between the lines is just minuscule. It would be a 0.20 difference between
Sure,
one line to the other.
which is within the
So
margin of error.
yeah, I don't think that it makes sense to even check which one would be here the best for the engine, because all of these are good ideas, making progress and making it really difficult for black to react the best possible way, which the engine never really takes into account, because the engine makes the perfect moves for the
Yeah,
opponent.
no,
But
engine doesn't get flabbergasted or
yes.
confused or
So
surprised.
very good job there. I think all of these are great. And you said that you struggle in positions like this, and then you listed all the best possible ideas here for white. So I'm not sure who is struggling in positions like this.
I appreciate the compliment, but it's true. I sometimes get impatient. And hey, Evertwitch, thank you for the follow. Okay, all right. So
Happened in the game.
what happened in the game?
No, no,
I'm quite
play.
sure Alexander did. I'm quite sure Alexander didn't play g3.
No, and she didn't play bishop g4, but she took on d5, so we do get to have some of these ideas. E takes d5. She played a3. On the one hand, there will be no bishop b4s, and on the other hand, she can be preparing the minority attack that you mentioned. After king g7, she played rook fe1. These are all logical moves. So I guess, like, if she wanted to go rook e1, it made sense to not step into bishop b4, and she can always in the future play b4. So it's
Gotcha.
a multi-purpose move. What I found slightly surprising later on, there are so many possibilities on how to play this, so I'm not gonna um, be like asking you which one is better or not, but I do want to discuss as a final critical move, a critical position. Now she went for the minority attack, and this is inaccurate. So I need you now, if you want to flip the board, you can, but you will need to think about black's position. So up until this moment, there were a couple of different ways in which white is always better in any of these. Depends on which plan you go for, but white has an advantage. B4 seems to give some chances back to black. It's not like it's a mistake. It doesn't change the variation fully, but it gives a bit of hope for black if black finds the strongest move.
Gotcha. Okay. And I think we probably need for the people in the chat to explain what minority attack is.
Sure. How would
Uh,
you explain
yeah,
minority attacks?
so minority attack is usually when you have this configuration in which there is minority literally means that fewer pawns are attacking the bigger mass of pawns.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually a very typical position. So these two pawns are aiming to exchange themselves for attack these three pawns, so that when pawns are exchanged, the black will stay with the weak c6 pawn in this situation. In other words, it's literally undermining the black's pawn chain.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I
That
hope,
was a very good explanation.
okay, I hope that's so. All right, so we are looking for a nice option here for black.
Yeah, at least to have some chances because
Counterplay.
so far it has been very passive for black.
Okay. All right. So let me think for a second. We cannot play some. There's. I don't see a forcing move. We cannot play f6. I don't see we can play b6. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that playing f3 makes a difference. And hmm. All right. So if you're asking me what I'm playing in a quick game, I'm playing bishop d8.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Okay, that's. I'm not saying that's the move, but that's a move.
Yes.
Oh, I see Henrik uh, selected that. So,
Hmm.
um, I mean, playing f3 and then jumping with a knight on f4 is another candidate move, but that's an attack with a single piece that can be pinned.
You mean which pin?
Well, meaning white can play queen d2. Oh, no, well, the queen is defended. So, all right. So basically, bishop d8 is probably I would probably if I'm playing a fast move, this is what I'm seeing and I'm playing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think bishop d8 makes sense because the bishop is not doing much on e7 and the knight on a5 is annoying. But you did mention another move that can stir the position
This
somewhat up. Yeah. And it's once again, the thing about this move is that it doesn't really refute anything in a sense that it's not a winning move.
no,
But I think it's worth mentioning that White gave this option, um, which was totally not necessary to give, because now, well, g takes f3, I think, is more than obvious. Uh, if bishop takes f3, after knight f4, the
yeah,
queen is hanging and the pawn is hanging, so black gets back the pawn. I was saying g takes f3 is more than obvious because even if black doesn't win the pawn back, because it's gonna be like knight f4, queen f1, protecting the pawn, we have kind of improved black's pieces for that one pawn, which is a
oh
weak
sure,
pawn, double
it's
pawns. So the only meaningful continuation is queen takes f3, but that does give up the d4 pawn, and in that sense we can have the same position but without white's d pawn and the f4 square free for the knight as a jump.
which is an advantage for black.
Yeah, so this position, I think it still should be better for white, but it's not that much of a deal anymore because finally black also has active ideas. And that's why obviously this was a blitz move, blitz game and blitz moves,
Sure.
but after knight e6, I think for that reason, once there's pressure on this pawn, if white had just play the move like rook d1 to overprotect the pawn. I
Hmm.
know it's easy in hindsight,
Sure.
but then there's like absolutely no counterplay for black, because the only pawn breaks you said, um, none of them are working. b6, f6, c5
No.
are all bad. So it's really a sad position if white had played rook a d1.
And did they play this? They didn't play this in the game, right? Bella didn't play this.
b4 was played, but Bella didn't see f3.
Okay.
And once again, if it was a classical game, I'm pretty sure that
No, sure.
it wouldn't have happened. So
I'm
these
not sure.
these are
Oh,
was that Alexa again?
It's Alexa again. I'll need to
Oh, I've
remember
been
to.
missing
I
her.
need to remember to turn it off next time. Sorry.
It's okay. I also have one sitting next to me, but it doesn't have that sense of humor as your Alexa.
No, my Alexa responds to uh, computer. So that's because I have.
Ah, I see.
So whenever we say computer, it wakes up.
Okay, now that makes sense because I don't usually say the word Alexa, but then
Yeah,
this one will wake up soon.
we have several Alexandras in as friends.
Ah,
So yeah,
now that explains.
yeah.
I'll just show you what happened in the game, but this was the last but one critical moment I wanted to look at in the game. A6, rook a, b1. Still, I think f3 is an option. Maybe not as strong as before, but still was an option.
Yeah, she's
Black
preferring
played,
a4 and b5.
yeah, yeah. She's going for the minority attack, and this is the final critical moment because we will not take a look at the entire game. The game lasted 71 moves, so I chose this as the final critical moment from the game because I'm really curious how would you react to queen g6 and what would be your reasoning.
Okay, so okay, so we have an opportunity to exchange queens and exchange a pair of minor pieces,
Hmm.
or to just exchange minor pieces, or not to
Yes.
exchange anything.
Hmm. Yeah. Which one would you go for by intuition? And then let's think further.
The If I'm exchanging anything, I really don't like that. That knight on e6 is pretty dangerous.
Hmm.
But the problem is that then I've straightened the pawns up.
Yeah.
And that bishop on e7, although cramped, is actually, supported by pawns. Black still
Hmm.
needs to answer how to handle these two babies,
Hmm.
which are troubled.
Hmm.
But I think the keys to the position here are dynamic. So, and I think I'm losing lots of my advantage if I exchange queens.
Hmm.
So I would probably just play bishop f5 and then
That
be
is the correct answer.
okay. Yeah,
Very good. Very good job. I was surprised that Alexandra traded queens and then also took on e6 for what you mentioned.
yeah,
Like yes, the e6 knight we want to get rid of, but it does straighten the pawn chain. So she went for this endgame, which I mean, I think once again this is a more of a blitz decision because clearly white should be better, but you have given up
a
quite a lot
lot
of
of
the advantage.
the advantage. And on top of it, these are hard to get to now.
Yes. Yeah, and actually in the game, a couple of moves later, it's already about equal, and until almost the very end, it was just a balanced endgame. It starts out with white being better, but it's so difficult, as you said, to get to those pawns that there's no clear way of making progress here, unfortunately. So if I'm pretty sure that if it wasn't for a blitz game where
Sure.
safety sometimes comes first, then Alexandra would have played bishop f5 too, because uh, the black king is more vulnerable. The pawn structure you don't want to straighten, so it makes sense to keep the queens on the board here, unless you can trade in a way that then you get to the pawns that we were talking about. If in an endgame those pawns become real targets, then yes, you want to get the endgame. But here, it's not the case, and then it doesn't really get us closer to a final result to trade. She had to play 71 moves in total to convert this, and this is move 24.
Oh yeah. So yes. Yeah, and very honestly, one thing that I was kind of impressed that this shift of the knight from d7 to e6
Yep,
actually
that was quite a progress.
made a huge amount of difference for
Yeah.
yeah.
And now that you're mentioning that, you remember when we were looking at king f8 and then c takes d5, e takes
Hmm.
d5, bishop g4. Maybe the engine likes it that much because even though there's nothing concrete, you cannot do this knight maneuver. There was always a king or a rook on f8, so black had to go knight to b6, and then
Uh,
you will never get these positions.
makes
I'm
sense.
just starting to understand. I didn't understand that myself. I was like, there's nothing concrete here. You can go rook e1 e6 or g3, but there's nothing major. So Nikola, you have just understood
Thank
the
you, Anna.
profound profound reasoning of the engine why c takes d5, e takes d5, bishop g4 is so urgent for white to play. That's impressive. I want to go back to that moment as the final position
Sure.
because you have I think you have cracked it. I haven't thought of this, honestly.
Okay. Thank you, Anna.
Here,
Yeah.
all these positions, whether castle or king f8, but the engine really insists on placing the bishop on g4. And there's nothing concrete, but once the knight is chased away, you will never get this solid setup that black managed to build up.
Yes, and that was a grandmaster move. Really was.
Yeah.
That was. I'm homeless on Wi-Fi. It it's played by two very strong female grandmasters. Grandmaster Alexandra Kostyanyuk, who is a former world champion, and Grandmaster Bella, and I can't pronounce that.
Bela Khotanashvili.
Khotanashvili, who is a very strong grandmaster from Georgia. Yeah, it's a
You did
five.
an amazing job, Nicola.
Oh,
I'm
thank
really
you.
proud of you.
Oh, thank you. No, I just need not to get myself adopted on whenever that is on Sunday.
Well, I hope that these sessions are helping you. What do you think were some of the most important
Oops.
conclusions from this game? What you have learned from this game?
I'm gonna make one statement about this, which is, I wasn't very happy with my chess over the weekend, but I played a game against Andrea Bottes in which I managed to win the game, and I'm positive that I wouldn't have seen the final mating attack if we weren't doing this. So thank you, Anna.
I'm very happy to hear that, and congratulations on the game.
Hey, Worship, how are you doing? No, not American Georgia, the Georgia in the Caucasus. Yeah, no, Alexa is standing still. I have no idea what dropped off. I was slightly worried what dropped off because I have a bunch of laptops. I hope that's not what fell down. Anyway, it's fine. We'll deal with it. Thanks. All right. So Worship is a dear friend of mine, and he's a legend, and he's also started streaming recently. So please
Hmm.
give him a shout out and a visit. He usually streams his games and his rating pursuits. So anyway,
Hmm.
all right. So they played another 50 moves, which
Yes, which I will send you, and you can
that's fine.
analyze the
We
end
don't
game
need to
too.
go over that. Okay.
But these were I really wanted to focus on the middle game and these very complex lines to evaluate
All
and
right.
which plans to go for. That was the main idea about this game
Okay.
for today.
All right, guys. So that was. I'm very happy and excited. Torture is over. I
You
hope.
really did a great job, Nikola. You should be proud of
No,
yourself.
and respect is mutual. Thank you. These games are really truly fascinating, and I learn a lot from them. Um, so for those of you who came late, there will be a new streaming series. If you put exclamation mark adopt, and they're going to be on Sundays, and I managed to screw up the date. It's June 21st. And it will be commentated by Grandmaster Aryan Tari. And every Sunday at noon, there will be another adoption match against players that are stronger than me. First match is against the WGM Chu Zhu, and she's a former world champion. So I'm gonna at least I'm hoping to 10 interesting games from which I'm gonna learn a lot and material for my best losses on Monday. Oh yes, speaking of my best losses. Due to popular demand, I actually got about 15 requests. The next My Best Losses Monday stream will actually be an exception.
Hmm.
I will be showing 2 wins
Oh,
because
wow.
people were asking me for wins, and I'm gonna shoot 2 wins. One win will be against, of course, 2 grandmasters. One is against Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky, and another win is against the Hand and Brain team of Hikaru and David Moray. They were playing Hand and Brain against me on stream, so
Those are
I'll be
great
showing
games.
those 2 games. So that's going to be happening on Monday. On Sundays at noon, that's the inaugural match against Chu. And we'll post everything else in the Discord. If you haven't joined my Discord, it's recently revamped. Please join. The link is in the chat. And I wanted to say, not for the first time, not for the last time, is thank you, Anna, for this. This was very fabulous, and this was very useful and very instructive. Already looking forward to our next session. And thank you guys for being here. It's always exciting these streams are always exciting. And yes, this is on Nikola's stream, and Anna is hosting my channel when we have these sessions, so you can watch them on both. And anyway, time for us to decide who are we going to raid. I promised. Hikaru is just chatting and he is doing this. I promised Chessbra a raid, and it's Eric Hansen playing some of his 3-minute games, trying to prove his thing. So I'm gonna send you to Chessbra, and looking forward to seeing you guys on Sunday. And thank you for being here, and thank you again.
Thank you so much, Nikola, and thank you everybody for
Alright,
tuning
so
in.
yes. He's playing Jan perfect. So that's
Oh,
actually.
amazing.
So I'm actually gonna join to watch that as soon as the raid is going. So thank you guys. See you guys on Sunday. Bye. And very good. That's done. Let me